I'm Julie Neckley, and this is a video on Jupiter's transit through the house of marriage. So basically, as you probably know, Jupiter is a planet that opens things up, it uplifts things, it expands things. So it's generally considered a lucky planet because by widening the scope of our life and uplifting the scope of our life, it just lets things happen more easily, it lets things flow. And so we generally feel more happy and lucky under Jupiter's influence. Now there can be a bad side, of course, because it's kind of like we're covered with butter during this time. Everything else is covered with butter. Holes are opening up, so things can just slip and slide. So if you're a person who has like good judgment generally and you're grounded, then it can be a time when you can achieve your ambitions. But if you're more of a fool, then it can be a time when you can get yourself into trouble just because you're saying yes to things, other people are saying yes to you, and so all your stupid plans can come to fruition more easily. Now, when Jupiter impacts, when he enters the house of relationships, or also impacts Venus, so he's transforming our relationships, he tends to have certain signatures. One of them is he brings in international people. That's a huge one with Jupiter. And you also tend to interact more with other people who are under Jupiter's influence, like lawyers. He rules lawyers in the legal system, and politicians, and wealthy people who are a little bit more established than you, like nobles. So it's generally a positive, uplifting influence on your relationships. Existing relationships will tend to work better, and new relationships will tend to be kind of lucky ones that you're like, cool. There can be a little bit of a problem with Jupiter transits to relationships because in some cases he can cause them to end because Jupiter, he puts a big emphasis on personal growth and freedom. He doesn't like to be chained down, and so sometimes it's a time when people can want to expand outside of the confines of their current relationship, causing them to leave it to seek greener grass or just more freedom and that sort of thing. So also people that you meet during this time, they will tend to be people who want to benefit you and who don't want to chain you down. You know, like even if you do get into a romantic relationship with this time, it will tend to be someone who encourages your own freedom and wants their freedom as well, even if it's monogamous. Okay, so when Jupiter enters the house of marriage specifically, this is different from Jupiter entering the house of romance, for example, because the house of marriage does not necessarily mean that you will get married, and it doesn't rule only romantic relationships. Like the house of romance is really about relationships that make us feel bubbles and sparkles and that sort of thing. Whereas the house of marriage is about, it's like the house of partnerships, basically. It's about getting our needs fulfilled through other people and fulfilling their needs. So it's kind of like the house of interdependence, really. So Jupiter going through this house, it can mean a marriage or a romantic relationship, but not necessarily. And personally, I think that it is luckier to not try to focus on romance or marriage when he's in this house, but instead to focus on what I'm about to tell you. And one warning is that in some cases, if you're in an existing relationship, this can cause the relationship to end, but if it does so, it will generally happen in a smooth way, like conscious uncoupling sort of stuff. And once again, it will be because the people just want to move on to something better and easier and kind of rise above their current situation. But that usually doesn't happen. What happens more commonly if you already have a marriage is that your marriage will improve and benefit you in some way during this time. Okay, so here's my recommendation for when you have Jupiter going through your house of marriage, and this would apply whether you're single or married. Don't make romance the focus because Jupiter is not per se a romantic planet, but he doesn't rule out romance. But if he's going to let you have a romance, it's going to have to be with someone he approves of. So where I would start is just by building more relationships with people that Jupiter would approve of, right? So then if you are going to have a romance, this is giving you fertile soil for it. But even if you aren't, it will still just benefit you as a person. Okay. So how you want to do this is you want to start by having a vision. Vision is like 90% of the game with Jupiter. It's like on Jupiter's day, which is Thursday, it's considered unlucky to do things like clean, because Jupiter sometimes needs us to step back from the endless hamster wheel of task and take time to re-envision our life, to have dreams, to know where we're going, etc. Because when he expands and uplifts our life, it really happens first through opening up our mind, lifting up our eyes, and yeah, that's always the first step with Jupiter. So when you're having a Jupiter transit, you really want that to be the first step, that you take some time to step back and think, what do I want in this aspect of my life? So when he's aspecting your house of marriage, your house of relationships, what you want to do is step back and think, what types of people would I like to have relationships with? What types of people do I find admirable? What types of people do I look up to? What types of people do I find valuable? What types of people do I find aspirational? Because those are the types of people that Jupiter is about. Whoever you see as aspirational, whoever you admire, whoever you respect, whoever you feel could benefit you, those are the people that Jupiter cares about. So if I were you, I would start by making a list of people that you consider admirable and aspirational. And I would start by just considering everyone since the beginning of time, including fictional characters. You know, who would you want to be in a relationship with? And it can be like a romantic, or it could be a friendship, or it could just be an acquaintance. Who would you want to know? Who would you want to be able to consult? So write down all the people, even if they're fictional, who you would want to know, who you consider admirable and aspirational. You know, consider what they say, how we're the sum of the 7 people we talk to the most or whatever. I don't know if that's true, but it's a good way of thinking about things when Jupiter's impacting your house of relationships, you know, because it's like the company you keep can really transform who you can become. And so this is a time to think about what types of people reflect who I want to become. Yeah. So that's the first step. Write down all the people you can think of since the beginning of time, including fictional ones, who you would want to know and be in relationships with, and then consider like all living people who you actually could interact with, like including famous ones though. Which of them do you consider admirable? And then move down to people who you actually know and have direct access to. Which of them do you consider valuable? Which ones of them do you consider aspirational? Who can help you? Who would you like to be in a relationship with? And if you want to go farther, you can, a little bit creepy maybe, but you can even print out, you know, the pictures of these people and hang them up on your wall. Because that's very much a Jupiter thing. It all begins with like a dream and a vision. So, and I should add, the relationships that take place in this house are directly impacting your house of self. So they do define who you are, even when it's your enemies, like how the Joker defines Batman. Whatever's going on in this house defines your identity. So that's why it's important to think of people that you personally actually respect, that you actually admire, that you actually think are neato, and put them on the list. So that's the most important thing. That's like 90%. But once you've done that, the remaining 10% is that this is like a time to reach out to people. If someone can help you, reach out to them. You know, if you can hire people to help you, if you can hire experts for their input, hire them. Or if you can't hire them because you're poor, then ask them for help, you know. But reach out, because the people that you encounter during this time are going to be people who open up your life, who open up your mind, who lift your sights up. So it's just a great time to not be a hermit, but to look for excuses to reach out for other people. You know, there's like nothing that says that you have to do something alone just because theoretically you could. This is a better time to not do something alone and instead to reach out. You could reach out to have a conversation or for emotional support, or you could reach out with you being the benefactor. Maybe you could help one of these people you admire, you know? It's kind of a time to look for excuses to involve other people in your life rather than seeing how much you can do by yourself. Because the more you open up to other people, the more you're letting in Jupiter's luck and influence at this time. And if you are hoping to have some type of relationship or romance, this will really give you the best chance, because you'll be bringing more people who Jupiter considers positives into your life. If you do get married under this influence, it will tend to be someone who's just slightly older, who you admire, is slightly more respectable or successful than you are, and likely international. If you do get married under this influence. But it's not uncommon, but it's not really the most common. So I wouldn't worry about that one way or another. Just focus on associating with those who you respect, admire, and look up to. This is absolutely great advice. Thanks. I'm Julie Naclei, and this is Jupiter's transit to the 7th house, the house of marriage.